Hello and welcome back to the field. Today's a little subject is going to be onions and garlic, which I will move on to later, but just a little update from me as to where I am with this field at the moment, because there's been quite a pause on the development of the site. And the reason being is I've actually managed to put my back out quite badly in the house move, and I've aggravated keeping on going. And yeah, it's getting pretty unbearable now. Not crying about that, but that's the reason why not a lot of work has been done, and it's all come to a bit of a pause, because the heavy work that I really need to do next can't really happen by me at the moment. I've been to the chiropractor, you know, I've told what I've got to do to get it better, but it's a healing process, which is can be frustratingly slow if you've suffered from back problems. Anyway, enough of the moaning. There's great news in as much as that I've had a nice big delivery of wood chip. It's another much smaller load, but this load here I have scored from local arborist. It's mostly conifer. I've also got another load of leaves that I've got to move. And one rather nice thing that has happened, and that is I have managed to collect, with the aid of my son, a nice load of seaweed. I know it looks like a mess at the moment, but this is all seaweed freshly gathered that will become part of my compost heaps and fertility for this year. In the trailer here is a nice load of black gold. Now this is last year's compost that I used in the tubs. That is 1 year used on potatoes. Will be absolutely fine for this year, but what I like to do is mix 50-50 or a little bit less than that seaweed and compost, and that will make really top quality fertility for the pots for later on. This is the garlic bed that you may have seen me create last autumn. Good compost with wood chip overlaying. There is some creeping buttercup coming through, and I've got to deal with that now. But the couch grass hasn't come through really, so the mulch is really beaten up well, but this has taken upon itself to root in a little bit into the compost. The ones that have got the strength have come through nice and easy, but as you can see at the moment, it's relatively easy to clear out. There isn't a huge deal of problems with that, so I'll spend half an hour today just going through and removing these stalks nice and easily. So the method is working sound. This garlic is planted into good compost a little bit earlier than this, and you can see the size difference between the two. This really did get hit by the cold winds that blew across in the storms in the autumn, and all the tips have gone. There's plenty of new growth on them, so they're coming on, but the size difference of the actual plants themselves are suffering a little bit more than what I would expect. So there's always a way around things, and I think an application of fertility will be very good. I think a little dose of nitrogen will be in order, but it's very hard to get hold of the right feed that would suit the way I grow. But I am going to try this stuff. This doesn't come cheap. Organic seaweed. And I'd love to be able to show you putting it on, but some goof Forgot his watering can. So I can't mix it up today. Oh dear, dear, dear. What it's like to have a good memory, eh? This will be interesting because going back to my old days, I used to be a keen fuchsia grower, and fuchsias are very good at separating a good grower from a poor grower by virtue of the way that you treat them and feed them. The potting compost, it actually teaches you an awful lot about growing, because you're forced to compete with other people that have got it right, and unless you get it right, you can't compete, and the plant will show you the difference. And when you get judged in a competition, it's stand out who's been treating the plants well and who hasn't. Why am I telling you this? Well, these may need a nitrogen fertilizer, but organic seaweed isn't really that beast. When we were growing fuchsias, we always used the seaweed as a tonic that would add the micronutrients rather than a big feed. So it may not be the right product to give it the boost that I need. As you may or may not know, I don't use animal manures on my crops. It's also based, but where that falls down is when you're looking for a nitrogenous feed for this type of application, and there really isn't much at all. You can have alfalfa if you wanted to, but alfalfa is quite horrendously expensive to do this way, and I'm loath to spending any more money on the garlic, because as you know, I'm trying to do this in a cost-effective way, and at the moment that isn't ticking those boxes because I've spent more than enough on the mulching material for this bed. Right, so that was your garlic. This is Troy onion sets in the same bed, with planted into good compost with lesser compost and wood chip over the top. They're doing okay, but I just want you to compare two things in a second. This one, which had average compost on top, and this section here that had the aged wood chip on top. It doesn't look aged now; it looks very bright and white in the reality, but it actually was aged, at least a year old wood chip. And they do appear to be suffering under nitrogen loss, so I've got to try and do something about that as well. The idea of putting wood chip down on top of compost, we know that can produce problems, and it does seem to be bearing out at the moment. But let's see how the full story goes as we go along. I also would like you to compare to my allotment. Now these onions are exactly the same variety, all Troy, and I've got two areas of planting out. One area that I did first of all, which is this area here, which is a bed with good fertility, added compost, very nicely treated. All they seem to be doing okay. Ignore the elephant garlic in the middle, that's not part of this little comparison. Now if I compare a second area that I did plant up later than the rest, this is doing even better. This was the area that I had for my greenhouse that blew away, got destroyed in the winds, but it actually had a really good bed that would have previously fed my tomatoes and cucumbers in, but it was really high fertility, and you can see how much difference this bed is. So just going back to my onions in the field, compared against the onions in the bed, and compared against the onions in the former greenhouse bed, you can see there is a difference. Fertility is everything, and it appears my new bed is struggling. I thought it was worth just showing you a clip at the end here, showing the actual hand weeding and how much was done. It's not too bad. This is more a reflection on how well the mulches worked. All the brown marks are where I've been removing the weeds. Not too bad at all. However, this one patch here had a lot of couch grass in it. It has worked its way through this mulch. This one patch wasn't really deep enough, so it looks like that might backfire on me a lot longer term there. So that's a bit of a shame. Other than that, the individual creeping buttercups came up rather easy. I'm quite pleased with that. There is hope. I may have overcome the creeping buttercup problem. Docks I certainly won't have. That one will curse me for a little while longer yet. Other than that, the bed isn't looking too bad though. Well, so that's it. Thanks for not joining me on another episode, and hopefully it's been of some use. See you next time.